This week, Dave Johnson from Expel is with us to discuss 3D printing for hackers. Then in the security news, finding new flaws in UEFI using Stace, combining vulnerabilities to exploit sonic wall devices, remote BMC exploits, Netgear patches, and not a lot of information is gleaned. 22 minutes before you're exploited, according to some, once a proof of concept is released. If secrets were lost, we'd all be screwed, especially if we're running Python. But we're not, because someone saved the day. Exim has not been replaced by something better, like Qmail, for example, just saying. And Exim is also vulnerable again. CISA's red team reports in, and attackers use drivers to attack EDR. The saga continues. All that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network. It's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly. Breachlock is a global leader in continuous attack surface discovery and penetration testing. Since Breachlock was founded, they are adding over 50 new customers every month. They have discovered over 1 million reported vulnerabilities and performed more than 20,000 pen testing engagements, including pen tests for over 15,000 web applications, 8,000 mobile apps, more than 100,000 APIs, over 10,000 cloud security audits, and over 200,000 network endpoints. They test your entire attack surface and help you mitigate your next cyber breach before it occurs. Know your risk. Contact Breachlock today. Visit securityweekly.com/breachlock.
Coming to you from Purgatory Studios in semi-high definition, compliments of Darth Vader himself, this is Paul's Security Weekly. It's episode number 835, being recorded on Wednesday, July 17th, 2024. I am your host, Paul Asadorian, joined remotely by Mr. Josh Marpet. Josh, welcome.
Why, thank you. It's always fun to be here. You never know when you'll see a stick in the corner and just need to do something with it.
That's right. That's right. What did you do? Did you beat all the other co-hosts with a stick too?
I absolutely beat them all off.
Yeah, that doesn't sound. It's not what I was going for. Mr. Dave Johnson is here with us in studio.
Aloha.
What's up, man? We've been plotting and scheming this for a little while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it's coming together. We'll dig into it. We've actually, look at this. We've actually got a 3D printer in studio, actively printing something. We'll talk about it in a moment. So, okay, I've got an announcement. Maximize your investment at Black Hat 2024 with a one-on-one on-site interview. Drive thought leadership and boost brand awareness with Cyber Risk Alliance's expert editorial team from Security Weekly and SC Media. Act now. Limited interview slots are available. Secure yours today by visiting securityweekly.com/Black Hat 2024. All right. Today we're talking about 3D printing for hackers. I am excited to have Dave here with us in studio. Dave's a longtime friend of the show, Rhode Island native. Did lots of maker stuff here in Rhode Island, worked for Security Weekly for a while doing production.
Yeah.
And so, Dave, we go way back. We go way back. And it's good to see you, man. I'm glad you're here.
Yep. It's always good to be back. I think it was like, what was I, the second audio video producer here?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I was telling everyone the one after you that you recommended was amazingly entertaining. Just leave it at that. Had the most nicknames out of anyone at Security Weekly.
That's impressive.
Scuba Steve is the one that.
That's a good nickname.
Scuba Steve. Yeah,
that's a classic.
So we wanted to, I don't know what happened. We want to talk about 3D printing because you've been talking a lot about 3D printing. Like you dove like right into 3D printing, and some of the backstory is there's an Ender 3 3D printer sitting over there, which I haven't even shown you yet, that you're going to have to come back and do some tweaking when we have more time.
My 3D printer Spidey sense didn't even go off. I walked right past it.
That's what the sad state of affairs is with that. It's not turned on. It's not configured. It's not set up. Larry's just like, I bought a Bamboo, and so this one's coming to the studio to mess with.
It's exactly what happens.
Is that okay? So Ender 3 is like reasonably priced where most people get started 3D printer. right?
It was.
It was.
Anyway, there's a lot of political background to this, and there's a lot of people who are, fanboys and fangirls of both brands. I have used an Ender 3. I had an Ender 3 V2 5 years ago when it just came out. They made some upgrades, etc. And then a couple years later, Bamboo came out with Bamboos and just blew everybody away for the most part.
So yeah, Bamboo is a later player to the market.
They showed up out of nowhere, effectively,
Okay.
which, as we know from a lot of industries, usually doesn't bode well. Like a
Yeah.
new vendor shows up on the stage,
Has something great. Everyone should try this, and then people start using it. It's crap. But the
Yep.
Bamboos are, from what everyone has told me, they're like, you just go buy. If you're going to get in 3D printing, go buy it. If you have the budget for it, go buy one. Right.
100%. And they've come down in price to the point where you don't need significant budget. They're very, very competitive with Enders now. When they first came out, they were super expensive. Long story short, even if Bamboo's not for you, 3D printing's super approachable now. And what that means is you're having to do less maintenance, less break fix.
Mm-hmm.
And now you can get to the fun stuff.
Yeah. Now, speaking of fun stuff, you've got, which printer did you bring here to the studio? I'm going to cut to it again.
Yeah. So this is a Bamboo Lab A1 Mini. So this is the least popular, but it is the smallest. So I bought this, and I bought it specifically because if you look at the top, there's a handle on it.
Yep.
And
it's portable.
It's very portable. I 3D printed that out of a filament called PETG.
Oh, you 3D printed the handle to it?
Yep.
I thought that was standard, dude. Good job.
It should be. I did not design it. Somebody else did.
Sure.
And I can now run that out of my car. So my car has a inverter, and I also have a battery pack that I can bring with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I can literally just throw this in the trunk and 3D print either stuff I want in the field, or 3D print with filament that is dangerous to print indoors, and just do it outside in the comfort of the great outdoors.
Now, you wouldn't do it while you're driving.
You could,
because it has to.
I wouldn't recommend
it. Has to be on a somewhat stable footing, but what do you call that? The compensation for movement.
Yeah,
is like a big deal in 3D printers, right?
It can be. It's getting less of a big deal.
Gotcha.
I say if we were to try it, it would probably have a decent job as long as the thing we were printing wasn't too tall and skinny, unlike what we're printing right now, which looks.
Yeah. What are we printing right now?
So we are printing a Captain Crunch whistle. So
awesome. I'm like, dude, if you print me a Captain Crunch whistle tonight and gift it to me, I'll be the happiest.
Yes, you can have one. No, here, let me share my screen real quick. So this is some software that I use, made by Bamboo, and this is.
You be able to share your screen?
Yeah, I'm sharing right now. Right meow.
Oh, there you go.
So this software is made by Bamboo.
That?
And here is the whistle.
Oh, that's the whistle. Okay.
So if you look really closely, it's got even kind of the silly stuff. And all the green things are supports for the whistle. So if I were to remove this is what it's going to look like after the supports come off. So
I see.
When you're printing stuff that's tall, or like, see this overhang right here?
Yeah, it prints a support. Or just the step file. Is this a step file?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, the step file prints a support. Tells it to print a support, I should say. Correct.
And there's a few different types. Like here's something you can definitely hack around with. You can choose different types of supports, and you'll get different things. And
now, did you download this step file?
Yeah.
And now you're just in software, just modifying it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
is it the software for Bamboo printers specifically?
Yeah, it is. It is. But there's a lot of open source softwares they can use. Here's a different support. I mean, here's the thing. Long story short, 3D printing's super approachable now, to the point where there's enough files out there. And I'm a terrible graphic designer. Like,
I was going to ask, so most of your other people's step files, but
yeah.
it is possible to design something yourself. I just wouldn't know where to begin to design something from scratch.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different software out there that allows you to design from scratch. But here's the deal. Like, every time I think I'm going to need an advanced piece of software or to up my skill set so far in order to 3D print something or design something to 3D print, I either find it already built or something I can modify, or I build it from multiple different parts, or it's so simple that even I can do it. So for instance, let me share my screen again.
We'll get to it. But I had something I wanted to print. I should have sent you before the show.
Planning is key. Here we go.
It looks pretty involved though.
So here's some stuff that I've printed, and some of the stuff is really.
Oh yeah. So sorry, but backing up, you
Yeah.
gave a talk called 3D Printing for Hackers at Hope.
Yeah.
Now, when I told you, asked you, I should say, to come on the show and do a segment titled 3D Printing for Hackers, did you already have that talk being built? Or did you go, hey, that's a good idea, Paul? I should submit it to Hope.
At any given time, I've got like 4 or 5 talks just like floating around in my head.
Yeah.
And every now and again, the opportunity arises and it's like, hey, we should put that into a presentation. So while I was at Hope, they are really generous with their 4th track. They make it open to whoever wants to present.
Oh,
so
I see. Okay.
I just, after I got done with my shift volunteering at Hope, I then put thought to paper, threw this in a presentation, and then delivered it the next day.
Oh, that's awesome.
And got some really good feedback. It was kind of cool. There was a mix in the audience of people who were really experienced with 3D printing. And then there were some that had not done it before. So it was I don't know, there were like 7 people in the room. It was very small. It was a last minute thing. But what
it was
that
kind of like sounds like a birds of a feather kind of session. Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah,
it allowed us to have a really good conversation. And then it gave me an opportunity to think of some things I wouldn't normally have. And I'll probably use this presentation again. But anyway,
that's awesome. That's awesome. So Hope Hackers of Planet Earth every other year in New York City.
It's in Queens now.
It's in Queens. Okay.
Yeah.
So because it used to be somewhere, where New York was it? It was at a really kind of
Pennsylvania hotel.
Pennsylvania hotel. That's the one. It wasn't at a very nice hotel.
Josh, have you been to Hope before?
I have unfortunately been to Hope several times. I have never stayed at the Pennsylvania Hotel because of the stories of having to clutch bags of ice to your chest to sleep.
What?
Because the air conditioning is that bad in that damn place.
Oh.
I have explored the back rooms and upper floors with Mudge, actually. Mudge has a picture of a Ninex sign that we found on like the 17th or 19th floor in the back alleyways. There is somewhere in the Hope Hotel, there is a floor full of nothing but like ancient spring beds as a storage room.
Cool.
And if I remember correctly, and I don't know if any of us got a pic of it, this is a long friggin' time ago. There's a sign from the ancient days of the Hotel Pennsylvania, and it was effectively it was the white floor, the nightclub for whites only.
Wow, a lot of history in that. Yeah, that's a really old hotel.
Is
that the one near Central Park? Am I making that right? Is it about Central Park or no?
I don't remember, to be honest with you. It's been like like 10 years.
But now it's in Queens, and it still happens every other year.
Yeah, it does.
Pandemic might have thrown a monkey wrench in that. I want to say, did they take a year off or virtual? But
they
most
did.
Conferences. Yeah, okay.
They took
whatever.
So.
It is back now, right? Yeah.
I was listening to some of the other attendees, and they said last year, this year was significantly better than last year. So I think they experienced.
Did they do one last year or 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
Oh, okay. So like 2022. Yeah.
Last
time. Yeah.
Last time. Gotcha.
And I think they were probably suffering from the same thing every conference was like figuring out how to restart after a long hiatus.
Masks and the whole, okay.
Yeah, and the audience has changed. There's a lot of folks who have basically pulled themselves out of society for the most part. They're like, you know what? I never want to get whatever that was again. Especially in our industry where, we're, I guess paranoia is a standard of the job.
It's a thing.
It's a normal part of the job.
Sure. So back to 3D printing. So I guess a good place to transition to is, I know nothing about 3D printing. Where do I even begin?
Yeah, so
don't try it. You suck. You didn't get on the bandwagon. You should never get on. No, just kidding.
So
why is Josh so cranky tonight? You all right, man? You need a drink?
I'm not cranky. I'm just excited to be here.
Oh, okay.
So here's the logic chart.
He has a red hue in his glasses. Do you see that?
Huh.
I got new transitions, and it's now you can get them in red now.
Oh, I thought about getting those. Those are nice. The new transitions is very fast. It is quite nice. I didn't get the reflective.
I love this slide. So you're sharing right now so people can see it, right?
Yep. So here's
this could apply to a lot of hobbies that we have. Right?
This one is specific to 3D printing, though. This took a ton of research. So this is basically how you start 3D printing.
I like how you did ASCII art too. Like, you know what? I don't need any fancy boxes or anything.
Now,
it's just going to be ASCII art.
You might ask yourself, how do I stay in 3D printing? Well, this is pretty much how you stay in 3D printing. You will constantly find things to 3D print. Sort of like that episode of Portlandia where they're like, we can pickle that. In this case, you can solve so many problems with 3D printing you wouldn't have expected until you actually buy one. Once you buy one, now it's a thing that needs to be doing stuff in your house. Otherwise, it loses significance.
Like always be printing.
Always be printing. ABP. Right. So wait,
what kind of things are around your house? Like, give me some examples recently where you had a problem and the 3D printer with some step files, I'm assuming, can help you fix that.
So I've got a few. So hooks. All the hooks. All the hooks all day long. I also needed to print an internet. Are you familiar with the internet box?
No.
Yes.
I mean, I know what the internet is.
From
it's a series of tubes.
The IT crowd.
Oh.
The internet box.
What was the internet box? What did it look? Where did you have a picture of it?
Yep, I've got a picture up on the screen. So right here, is a picture of the internet, and
because she thought like the internet was there was some storyline behind. I haven't watched the IT crowd in a really, really long time.
Long story short, they instructed her to basically they told her that she had unplugged the internet and like destroyed civilization effectively, and gave her a box with a little red light on it and said that was the internet. And she took her responsibility very seriously. The best part about this, so I was doing some research for Marketing Swag. The best part about this is not the fact that it's a little teeny tiny internet box. It's that it was designed by Rob T. Firefly, which in New York phone freaking circles.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that name in so long, and I'm oh my God, Rob!
He's like awesome. The 2600 Off the Hook show. Is he on Off the Hook?
He was.
Show? He was for a while, right? Yeah.
So shout out to Rob T. Firefly. Thank you for making this. And then some really nice person put together a Cult of the Dead Cow scan of one of their challenge coins, which I didn't know that they had released on for sale on Twitter a while back. And I totally missed the boat on that.
We should just print our own challenge coins.
We absolutely
why not, right?
You can not only 3D print like out of plastic, you could 3D print with a very expensive metal 3D printer.
You're right.
Or you can do lost wax casting with these. So if you take this, print it, bury it in sand, and then pour hot metal over it.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
it will do the same thing lost wax does.
Sure. I did want to get to filament types later on, but I think starting with like really cool stuff to print. So, or like everyday stuff. Like I like your hook. I see your hooks now. Right?
So many hooks. You
like, why would you ever buy a hook at a store again? My wife always buys.
My mom hung me on a hook once.
Right,
my father hung me on a hook once.
She buys the 3M sticky
command
hooks. Thank you. And they're like super expensive too. And she's always like Amazon boxes. You know, because if you got a wife, usually Amazon boxes show up with like just random stuff all the time.
Yep.
And usually my wife, there's some kind of command hook.
I'll point out that your boxes are probably much more expensive than her Amazon boxes. Okay. When the electronics show up, it gets uncheap very fast.
We'll talk about Prime Day coming up.
Yeah. Don't do that.
So some of
I don't want to talk about it. When the credit card bill comes in, just run.
Some of the really fun stuff that I'm doing right now is taking 2-dimensional images generated with AI and then either trying to get a 3-dimensional printable file out of it or converting it using a program called HueForge to a 3D printed image. So if you were to pick up this image or this one that I generated, these are 3D printed on a standard 3D printer with multiple different colors. That's and all awesome. They do is they layer the colors on top, and then you get something that you can hold that has just a little bit of surface to it. But you can get some really intricate stuff. I like.
Now, some people
the
print like
impossible.
parts for things.
Oh, constantly.
And are they getting step files and or modifying them? Or I bet you it's a mixed bag of I'm going to design it myself, or I'm going to get a step file, I'm going to modify it, or hey, someone created a step file for this like weird part that I need to fix my blender, my lawn, some home like appliance kind of thing or whatever, right?
Yeah. So you can generate your own and design your own, or if you lack that skill or don't want to, any of these websites will have things that you can grab and download. So I usually start with thangs.com, which is a search engine for 3D printed files. So if we were to go on here, it's demo time. If we were to go here, let me stop my share. Let's go to Thangs. I think the Hotel Pennsylvania is gone now. Was it demolished?
I think it was. I think you're right.
So if I were to go to Thangs, which is a very sassy 3D printing website name, and you were to say, hey, I want parts for an IKEA lack. Well, here's various different parts and like replacement parts for things. So you can get spacers and stuff, or they'll have things that people have turned lacks into. So enclosures for 3D printers is a really popular thing. Utensil racks, extensions, leg extensions, different types of feet. So you can, if you have a part or a need for a replacement part, odds are you can probably 3D print one, unless it's super exotic. But all the IKEA parts are, for the most part, 3D printable.
Yeah. So I saw something that I was like, oh, I really want one of these. And then Fractal made this case for a Raspberry Pi 5. And
that's on printables. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's now you can print it.
So if I were to do that,
and it's like a really cool case, and it has like these three the front things on here. So if you Google search for North Pi, if you're listening on the audio, or you're not sitting here in studio, and all right, Dave can bring it up on his computer too. You can't see my computer on the feed, but anyway,
there it is.
North Pi is a Fractal design. Showed off a miniature North case for the Raspberry Pi, and like everyone was drooling over it. They're like, oh my god. And I saw it, I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. Like it has three wooden I don't know what they call those things in the front, but they're like wooden decorative things.
Panels.
There it is. That's a good picture.
Wood mount. It just says wood. It doesn't have
wood.
The part name.
So it says you make these from wood. So I'm assuming you wouldn't 3D print that like I'd go into my wood shop.
Or you can straight up
or you
3D print
you could absolutely 3D print these out of anything, right?
You can 3D print with wood filament. Actually, it's just not going to look nearly.
It's just a really cool Raspberry Pi case. And then I saw we were doing this segment, and I was like, oh, I need to send this to Dave. Print one like this. So it's so cool. So Fractal, the story is they had one. In like one of the, when they were showing off their products, maybe it's CS or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh yeah, we had like one of these cases. We just made one of these cases just for like show. And everyone's like, well, everyone wanted that case, and now you can print your own.
So I would literally just go to printables.com, hit download, and then drop that into my slicer, slice it. It'll tell me how long, so I can actually show you. So I'll download this right now. So here's the main body.
What do you mean your slicer? Is it like you making your own cold cuts at home?
Yep. So in this case, so the way 3D prints, let me just download this real quick. Main body, boom.
Yeah, I'm not saying you have to print me one.
No, let's
print yourself one.
Let me show you how this actually works.
If you want one, you don't have to print. Like you're not my personal 3D print.
Well, actually,
I get my own.
Yes.
We'll get the Ender 3 going. Yeah.
I actually have a slide for that, which indicates places where you can. Here, screen share.
Also, I think speaking of Raspberry Pi, right? Like one of my drivers to get a 3D printer, and Larry just happy to like donate one. I just get around to making it go.
Yep.
One of my drivers is when you're working with hackery hardware, like Raspberry Pi hardware. Like I've got Raspberry Pi hardware or Flipper Zeros, right? And I want to print something.
Yeah.
as a case for it. That's cool. But back to Prime Day, I ordered. It was 50% off, Josh, and it was a Raspberry Pi Zero case with like all the things for like $23. But it was like everything. It was all the little components to like make a really cool, like had a really cool case. And it was on sale for a significant discount. But I'm like, I should also be 3D printing all of these cases and various things for all of the hack, like your flipper. Is that a flipper case? Is that your flipper?
It's a flipper case. Yeah. It just flips open, strangely enough.
Oh, it opens that way.
Yeah, it's like a really novel.
I should show that on camera. So this is, you printed this.
Yep.
And that's a really nice case, actually. Oh, and it has the silicone case on it.
They designed it.
It drops in, and I don't want to break it, but it clips shut.
I got it.
There you go. And then then it's got some kind of writing on it. I don't know what.
So it just mirrors what's on the outside of the case, of the silicone case.
Yeah, but does that say something, or
I probably
some kind of,
or I have no idea. This one though, this is the coolest thing.
This is heavy. What do you got in here? This is a mystery case. So this is like a Pelican case, dude. Like you 3D printed a mini Pelican case.
It's very similar.
Like think of how many hackery things that we have in my bag floating around. I've got a Chameleon dev kit actually sitting on the table over there that I should have brought. That I got working, and I like had it in my bag, like in a zippered little pouch, and I was worried it was going to get damaged. And I'm like, I need a case for this thing. And then like I'm on Amazon, and you're looking for a case of like the perfect dimensions to fit the thing you want to put in the case. And I'm like, why don't I have a 3D printer? This is ridiculous. And so you printed a Pelican case. Holy crap, that's amazing. It's a soldering kit inside.
So
look at that. Did you print the thing? Oh, and this is all printed on the inside.
Yeah. So if you take that out, you can set it on the table. It's got a pine sill inside.
Paul, it's adorable. Oh my goodness, it's printed on the inside.
This is so nerdy. It's so amazing, right?
So if you look at where
like right up my alley.
There's a ball bearing in a stand that comes out. You put the stand in there, and then you can put your soldering iron.
This is a soldering iron holder.
And it stands.
If you're a nerd, Josh, how are you not excited right now?
Oh no, I think it's because I'm not holding it like you are.
I know.
500 miles away, you bastard.
For those listening, you got to go check out the video and show it, because we've got the 3D printer and all the things some of the things that Dave has printed. So you got to check out the video for this one. So this is like does that go like?
It goes like.
Okay, all right. Dave's going to show me now. So we're going to cut the Dave.
So all you do is you toss this in here. And actually, it's better at an angle. There's a couple of different settings. So now,
I see.
You put this like this. You take your pine sill when you're not using it,
right? Because
you drop it in there. And this is a completely functional case. So I can actually use this as a soldering station, dab, get rid of my excess solder. Dude, there's some braid in here. I've got extra.
You just never know when you're going to need to solder something, and you just throw that in your bag, Josh, and you always have it, dude. How awesome is that?
And because this is a pine sill, I've got the 240 watt USB cable here, right there. It's built into the case or wound into the case. So I can be soldering. I could solder on the moon with this. It's so portable.
You never know when you're gonna be on the moon and you're gonna be soldering stuff.
I was just gonna say, like, that's okay.
So this is how you get your friends involved in 3D printing. You show them things that they could 3D print that they would like, so that way they get one, and then you can all 3D print together.
And it got quiet in here because the 3D print is done. I just cut to the 3D printer.
So that's a fast print. How fast did that print?
That was fast for a portable printer, dude. That was super fast.
I think it was an hour, if that.
It might have been.
And I could have sped this up
here around 5:30.
Yeah. So I could have sped this up. I could have lowered the quality, and that's where like making adjustments matters. But let's actually get it.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to keep it on the 3D printer while you. Yeah.
So you just lift it, and then
I'll cut back to
flex the thing. So here it is. And there's some random support.
No, let Paul pull the support off. He's got to try it.
Here you go, Paul.
All right, I'm going to pull okay, thank you.
They're actually mostly off.
It's mostly off already. So that's just the support that comes off.
Yeah, and just throw that away.
And so you just throw that away, and then you have
Larry's grumbling. Clean the damn studio.
A Captain Crunch, right? Does it say Captain Crunch on there?
Yeah, it should.
Yeah, it does. It says Captain Crunch on there, and it's a whistle. See that? I just made a long distance call. Did you guys hear that?
So yeah, I mean, it doesn't.
Oh my god, dude, this is the coolest thing ever.
Now you can. What I'm excited about, like, that's something that, when were those made? The 60s and 70s primarily, right?
Was it as early as 60s? I should know this. There was a book. There was a book called, ironically enough, I think it was called Freaks, and it was the history of phone freaking. Someone wrote a book on the history of phone freaking. I want to say it was called Freaks. Phone freaking goes back to the 60s.
Yep.
But the Captain Crunch and the whistle, I want to say, didn't happen until the 70s.
Yeah.
My guess would be 70s.
Because of the switching system.
And there's some interesting things. So coming up, I know it's August or September. No, it's Labor Day. The week of Labor Day, we're airing the Hacker Heroes interview with Simple Nomad.
Nice.
Who tells a story of when he was little and bought a blue box from
really
very famous people who were selling blue boxes at the time. And if you're familiar, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but I don't want to spoil the story. But Mark Loveless, aka Simple Nomad, tells that story. So now I have my own Captain Crunch whistle. This is
when was the last time you held one of those? Like,
I don't think I've ever held one,
really,
to be honest with you. Now I want like one of the original ones.
I'm sure you could
go pay a lot of money for stuff.
Last time I bought one, it was like $10, but I'm sure they're, well, that was 24 years ago.
Well, it's just like the phone booth in the, I don't know on if we have it on camera, but it's on set. It's not a phone booth, but it's a pay phone receptacle. You've seen it. If you follow my social media, I posted pictures of it. I bought that at a scrapyard, and the lady at the scrapyard was like, when cell phones started becoming popular, like, this is how long she's owned the scrapyard. She's like, everyone was bringing in telephone booths, the ones with the actual glass and the frame and everything, right?
Oh, man.
And then she's like, then it kind of slowed down. She's like, she's like, I wanted one, and they're like wicked expensive. And so even just the receptacle was $120. I think it was like $120 at the scrapyard.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's definitely scrap cost.
Yeah, but like there's the whole, you can't really, even if it's on camera, you can't see the whole top, but like the support structure goes up a good 8-9 feet in the air.
That's what, aluminum?
The base is steel, and then the rest is aluminum, because it's super heavy, dude, because the base is steel. It's super heavy.
It's really nice looking aluminum too. It's going to last a long time. It already has.
Right? Yeah, it's not going anywhere, dude. So you could 3D print a miniature one if you wanted to. That'd be cool.
So for the last portion of this demo, I'm going to demonstrate how you get your friends involved in 3D printing. So the first step is finding something they really enjoy. And you point to it and you go, hey, look, you could make everything
like, dude,
here.
This is how I get people into AliExpress. I'm like, did you know you can order like cigar lighters on AliExpress? And now Dave's like, did you know you can 3D print cigar
cases?
We call them accoutrements. Cigar accoutrements.
Blaze guard, whatever that is.
So you put your lighter in
Accoutrement.
Accoutrement.
All the cigarette cases, etc.
A lot of cigarette cases, yeah.
Yeah, it seems popular. I put in the word cigar, so I think it's just like
it's
making assumptions.
Generic. You're right.
Okay.
Sure.
Guys, this is cute, but let's be honest. When you're a hacker, you want to do something interesting with this shit. The Captain Crunch whistle is interesting for nostalgia. It's because we're old.
It's because we're old.
It's
true. Is not really applicable today.
What can I make?
Is there even a phone switch that in the US that responds to 2600 hertz? I want to say we covered a story where the last one was
Alaska, I think.
If there is,
SS7.
Stratton probably has it. But
if there is, there's like maybe one or two left in the US.
I bet Strat has one. Maybe the Vintage Computing Museum probably has one.
In other countries, I think some are still in use. I mean, it's not super common, but largely.
But what can I build as a hacker using a 3D printer that's actually useful for me besides a soldering iron case?
Sure. So
not to discount the soldering iron case.
Not to discount. It's really cool.
It's actually pretty hot, to be specific. Sorry. I'm working as a data.
Actually, it's pretty hot.
Actually, so
Technically correct is the best kind of correct.
So one of the things that 3D printers are best for are things that are impossible otherwise, or really just extraordinarily difficult. So creating custom circuitry using 3D printing materials that are transmissive to electricity. So you can actually, there are certain types of filaments where you can put low power through the circuit and actually just print the circuit into the thing, and you can make it embedded.
You're reminding me of the conductive ink pens to draw circuits on walls and stuff. I mean, that's
basically
similar
this
to
would
what
be a
you're
lot
talking
more
about.
accurate. Is similar. This would be a lot more accurate. More advanced, though, there's some companies that are experimenting with basically a copper doped powder, which they sinter with different frequencies of lasers.
Laser light, yeah.
And one frequency just causes the powder to bind. It's a polymer, it binds when it gets hot. The second frequency of laser activates the copper and causes it to basically melt and become conductive along with its copper brethren. So you can actually like carve out with one laser exactly the circuit that you want built into it. And that's kind of neat. What the thing is though, like you could literally 3D print a circuit right now for testing purposes, like in the comfort of your own home, on your desk for that matter.
Okay, so I can print circuits, I can print cases, I can print various different receptacles, I can print all sorts of interesting things. And I mean, but I can print a Dropbox, I can print a case for a Raspberry Pi, or for any of the numerous Swiss Army knife hacking tools in your pocket. Can I print lockpicks? Can I print Lloyds? Can I print?
Yeah, you can print some. So you can 3D print keys.
Now you're interesting.
They may not, depending on what you print them out with and how you print them, they may actually survive a turn or two.
Okay.
So
but if I can but you're saying that if I can do an impressioning kit, I can then print the key off of the impression, or the Lishi, where you can actually pull out the keying pattern. I can then print the key and then look like I'm doing it right and use it.
100%. You can also, you don't necessarily need an impression. So if you're used to reading keys, you could probably just do it by eye, or you could do it by picture. Right, so you could, there's quite a few apps out there. You can just take a picture. It'll tell you what the key depths are and what the keyway is, and then you can just go from there.
Okay, so going back to Paul's question about filament, there's various types of filament. Some are brittle, some are very strong, some are very, very strong, some are copper doped.
I read articles about all the different types of filament because it's pretty. But I want to go pretty fascinating, right?
I want to go a step beyond. The patents are expiring on the metal 3D printers.
I didn't know that.
Ah, okay, yeah. The patents are all expiring on all the metal 3D print systems, which means that they're going to come down from hundreds of thousands of dollars and many tens of thousands of dollars down to potentially, at least at some point, some prosumer, low commercial, so where it's possible that we could actually get some as people, not as trying to make money off of them. If you had a metal 3D printer, what's the first thing that you would print?
I would 3D print several different types of antenna to run experiments with.
Very cool.
So there's like one of the things that's especially different about 3D printing is you can make impossible shapes, you can make impossible parts. So you could do kind of some interesting antenna within an antenna type design.
That's cool.
You could 3D print an object made of two different materials at the same time with an embedded antenna that you can't see, and now you're getting into like Secret Squirrel spy stuff. Now
I would print my own lockpick set, though. No,
I mean, yes,
right. That's the most obvious thing I think for hackers to print.
I like the antennas. Honestly, I think I never would have thought of that. That's brilliant.
Can you print lockpick sets out of other filaments that are non-metal or alloys? Or
it's going to be a little brittle, though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like,
it's going to break off in the lock.
Right? I would say probably the most useful things would be like shims, not the kind you put in lockpick, like
no, the Lloyds, the ones that you slip a tongue like a doorknob lock with. Yeah,
right. Yeah, so those are typically some kind of plastic material.
Anyway,
I would do lock bypass stuff. But like the multi-material opportunities are there. So if you can, while you're printing, print an antenna inside a object that looks normal, like an everyday object, or even use two different types of metal, you might be able to embed an antenna in something that wouldn't normally be possible.
How about embedding a board? I mean, if you can do if you can do metal and you can do copper doping, or even just plastic and copper doping, you could build a board inside of an object as you're 3D printing it. So you could,
100%.
secret squirrel spy shit, like you said, well said. You could hide a drop box inside of a cabinet or whatever. You gotta be kidding me.
You can also help security. So I was just looking on Thingiverse for bypass tools, and it actually gave me an anti-bypass wafer for American locks. So you can actually take your lock out, put this small 3D printed object in place, and it will prevent somebody from bypassing the lock entirely and fix some of the security within it. So like the simplest things to do with 3D printing are like cases, custom cases for things, and hooks and like wall organizer stuff. Now, like we've got through exotic materials, or Josh, with your if with your future much cheaper laser sintering or whatever type of metal deposition 3D printers. Now we've got,
I'm not sure what type they are, but I'll look it up.
So now we've got metal parts that are going to be a lot more durable and or conductive. Robots, exoskeletons. That's not necessarily cybersecurity related, but let's face it, not all of us exercise as much as we should. And an exoskeleton would brighten my day, to be fair. If I could 3D print that and wear that.
An exoskeleton would brighten your day.
It would.
Yeah, I mean the things people do with 3D printers are pretty amazing. Like if you're into any type of cosplay or collecting, Marvel, Star Wars kind of stuff, and I've seen videos of people, basically printing like their own Iron Man type suits and stuff. You can go crazy.
So I printed along those lines. I printed the helmet of Dr. Fate. Which I thought was cool, just to kind of hold that in person was kind of neat. And then I printed a plaque for the Beetlejuice movie that's coming out. It doesn't say Beetlejuice twice, but once is enough. Maybe I'll print a second one and put it right next to it. But
how do you get text inside? So I have and I put this out on social media. This is kind of an interesting 3D printing related story. Is I was looking for cases for my Flipper Zero.
Mm-hmm.
I told you the story, and Larry actually subsequently printed me a couple.
Mm-hmm.
And I found one that was a plastic material. I'm not sure the exact filament that was used. And it was a case to hold your Flipper Zero with the Wi-Fi dev board on it. And so it was like a clamshell, kind of like two halves that went together with some screws.
Yeah.
Right. You remember the design.
Yeah.
And mine was black, and in orange it said "Hack the Planet," and like some other things inside of it. So like when you're 3D printing that stuff, how do you get the text on it? Does that happen during the print? Does it happen after the print, or both? Like, is both options?
So it happens during. Was it a different color?
Yes.
Okay. So
yes, it was orange, and the case was black, and the print, the text was orange. And when this person had their store up, so they had a store on, I think it was Tindy.
Mm-hmm.
And then on their Tindy store, you could go and order a print, and he would ship you the materials, right?
Yeah.
He would ship you the final print with all the screws and everything. And then I like to think that I might have had something to do with this, because I got mine and I was, did you see my excitement about the soldering case?
No, I totally missed that. Was it exciting?
When I got my Flipper Zero case that said "Hack the Planet" on it, it was an equal level of excitement, Josh. And I took a picture of it and I put it on social media, and I'm like, look at how cool I am. Like, I have a Flipper Zero case that says "Hack the Planet." And everyone's like, where did you get that? And I put the link to the Tindy store. And then subsequently, the Tindy store, there was out of stock of that item, and there was only step files available for download.
So I think the person my guess is the person got overwhelmed and was like, I just wanted to do like a couple here and there and maybe sell them and have some like pocket change. And probably, 25 to 50 people started trying to order from me, like, whoa, no. So yeah.
So what I'm doing right now, so I've got I don't have it with me, but I have a multi-material handler. It's called an MMS.
Yeah. So, but that is one of the bamboo. I've seen the bamboo printers where multiple spools of filament are on the printer at one time.
Exactly.
Right. And what did you call that?
And they call it an MMS. I just call it a multi-material handler.
Multi-material handler. Okay.
But that's just
sure.
That's just a term I use.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's right. So what I'm doing right now is I'm telling the slicer program, and a slicer is just called that because when you're 3D printing something, the design, you have like a design that's like a solid object, but 3D printers print in layers. So you have to tell the printer, hey, each layer do this. Yep, and that's what the slicer translates it into. It takes a three-dimensional image and then says, printer, at this layer, do this, right. Next layer, do this, etc. In this case, what I'd be doing, and this would take a long ass time, unfortunately, would be telling the printer, hey, when you get to this layer right here,
use a different color.
Use a different color. The only problem is, here's where the engineering comes into play. Since the printer is printing this vertically, it would get to this point. It would then switch the filament, and then it would then
back and forth and back and forth and back and forth
and it would switch it back. So like if you're going to do multi-colors, it's good to have one layer as the bulk of whatever color you're going to do. So that way you save time. Otherwise this would take.
Could you print it not vertically but horizontally?
Absolutely. I am so glad you asked. Yes,
because you can tell in the software that how the orientation of the print. Right?
Exactly. So if I were to select this, remove this, erase all painting, go back here, I could just tell it, hey, I want this thing to sit on the plate. Assuming my software.
I was just thinking too, for some reason, I don't know why it popped in my head while you're doing that, but underneath this table that we sit at when we do the podcast is a whole bunch of cabling. And I've ordered many different types of cable management products, I guess I would say, cable management products, and they all aren't great. Right? So with a 3D printer, I could find one that I was like, I think this is probably the best solution for me for mounting under the table kind of thing, and 3D print my own cable management pieces. Would be pretty easy to 3D print out.
Well, let's see. What do you want to cable manage? Just standard wires?
Yeah.
It's like shopping. It's like shopping on Amazon. It's like, what do I want to make today? What do I want? So cable management. So if I were to just type in cable management and share my screen again.
Clamps.
What kind of clamps?
Clamps like wire.
Very
specific. Like cable management clamps. I mean, you're going to see things that'll clamp down around the cables, I'm guessing.
Okay. And I really like also the cable savers too. I love cable savers. They go around the end of the cable. And
for like
they protect
strain relief?
Yes, strain relief. Yeah. Those things are cool. And sometimes those things can be for like headphones, they're like kind of expensive and not great. There's one right there. Yeah.
Nice for a thermocouple. Here's the under table mount strain relief.
Nice.
So it really does get like shopping. And what you end up doing is you end up purchasing multiple. So you start with one. The logic for should I buy a 3D printer is very straightforward. The answer is most likely yes. Now, when you are going through and you say, okay, fine, I'll get a 3D printer, the logic all points to that. The next thing you're going to do is figure out, okay, what do I want to make? Once you've done that, you then end up with things like this, objects that you end up having to store or figure out ways to use. This was actually an experiment I ran, printing one object on top of another and having it come out okay, which is actually kind of tough. But you will end up with a workshop like me where you get dedicated space just to do 3D printing. Right. In this case, I've got this A1 right here on this table, and then I've got two other bamboos that are here. I've got one other 3D printer that my kid uses,
Mm-hmm.
and she really likes making like small toys and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that is not a Bamboo.
Right.
It's
Right.
much smaller, much more portable, and kid safe. Speaking of safety, so I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. So there are all different kinds of filaments out there.
Many different kinds.
Right.
I don't know if we could probably spend the entire hour just talking about the differences in the filament types, right?
The ones that don't contain extraordinarily toxic things, and by like they probably still contain some toxic stuff, but
It's totally fine. It's totally fine.
Exactly. PLA and PETG are generally recognized as okay, but you still probably shouldn't breathe a ton of it in over a
You
long
want some
period of time.
ventilation in the room.
Yeah.
You're jiving at, right? Like, what kind of filament did you use for this?
That was PLA.
Okay.
So really safe to use, still not great to do over a long period of time, you know, like cigars.
Well, but you were printing something pretty small too.
Yeah,
and we're in a pretty big space, and there's actually air filtration in here for cigar smoke.
Exactly. Like we don't really know long term what filament, like long term exposure to filament will do. There's some people have experience doing that at a professional level, right? But the things you want to be extraordinarily careful about is that basically, as far as I can tell, all other filaments aside from PLA and PETG contain significantly toxic things when they heat up. So like ABS, you don't want to do that in a closed environment. You'll get chlorine gas and you might kill yourself. So you have to be careful. This is the only PSA section of the presentation, is that be careful what you're printing with. As far as my opinion is concerned, no 3D printed object is currently food safe. People will claim that, but like if you're printing and you have lots of porous surface, it's not
like you were describing how it works with the layers and stuff. And a lot of times when you get something that's been 3D printed, you can see and or feel the small slight ridges in what you've printed. And that makes it not food safe, but also not safe for printing adult toys.
Exactly.
Like don't if you're gonna do that, make sure you do your research on how to do that. Just don't take your off the shelf 3D printer and start printing things again for food or for adult toys, because you can really hurt yourself. You get really sick.
So, but yeah, since you're depositing things layer by layer, there's going to be lots of space for bacteria or other things to grow. So, you know, that's the PSA section. Aside from that, like Josh, to your point, there's a lot of opportunity for things to get hackery here. And I think what we're in right now is, I would consider it to be the second evolution of 3D printing. Like we started with stuff that was functional. It required a ton of effort and work to get the tool to be, at least in a consumer basis, for the tool to consistently do what you needed to. Like I used to have to, because so I took my Ender 3 out of the box and I immediately said, this is great. And then the next thing I said was, this is taking a really long time and requiring a ton of calibration. And this is 5 years ago. So then I spent a long time calibrating it, and then I would then crank up and use a custom firmware or something to improve speed, change the settings in the software, etc., which then caused it to break more often.
You're making me remember the days of like the 386s and 486s when you would tune your auto exec bat and your memory maker and all that shit, and you'd overclock it, and then all of a sudden you'd be like, yeah, it's fast enough to play this game Doom, and then it would break.
Exactly. And that's what happens when you fly too close to the sun. In this case, that's what I kept doing, and that I was outperforming or trying to make the printer outperform what it was designed to. So that's where like there's some like hacker skills that come into play there, mostly just troubleshooting and then trying to do creative problem solving. But
custom firmware is a thing too. Isn't with the Bamboo printers, people have modified and or made custom firmware for, much like the Flipper Zeros and a lot of other things that we use in the hacker being hackers, right? It's like, oh, I can customize the firmware or put a third party kind of firmware, open source firmware on it.
So
3D printers are one of those things.
Yeah.
But then there's also, I've seen like ESP32 based boards with displays on them that have firmware, and it's specifically to, I want to say, over I2C interface with the 3D printer. There's some kind of data connection, right?
Yeah,
Data
over
connection
USB.
Over USB to interface with the printer that I'm assuming gives you telemetry, but also data input as well, because these are touch screens. I actually ordered a couple to experiment with, and what I found was largely the firmware for some of the ones that I've bought were for 3D printers.
Yeah, so I had one because that was one of the ways that I was like, well, maybe I can make this printer work faster because it's taking forever to print the stuff that I want.
Yeah.
And so I ran Octoprint, and I ran a separate custom firmware on one of those devices, and it improved speed significantly, and it helped at speed maintain some of the consistency, but I still had to do a ton of troubleshooting. I would have problems I didn't understand and had to, like, there would be, I don't know about you, but when I troubleshoot, I turn on multiple things or turn off multiple things because that's the wrong way to troubleshoot. But I do it anyway.
Variable troubleshooting is always fun.
So
because you're trying to shortcut the troubleshooting, you should change one thing, observe the results, and then determine whether to modify your change, or if it worked, go change the next thing.
Exactly. That's how you should do things.
Or if it didn't work, go change the next thing.
That's not how I do things all the time. So anyway, I the amount of troubleshooting I had to do, even when I did it the right way, was incredible. And I used that custom firmware. It would run over the USB wire and tell the printer exactly what to do. The benefit was the Raspberry Pi was way more powerful than the onboard system that the computer had, the printer had. But now with more modern 3D printers, Bamboo included, but there's more, they do a lot of that stuff. All of the features that I was replicating in the community as an open source project was replicating by hand. They now build into it. And now Bamboo has opened up the ability for people to put custom firmware. Before they were closed source entirely.
Right.
And then other 3D
their
printers
audience is a maker community.
Yeah.
And so I can totally see that being good for their business to do that.
I
think it would be beneficial for many more types of businesses and verticals, but this one specifically, I can totally see it. So are you connected to that 3D printer over USB right now? Or
over the internet, which...
Oh, okay. So you just put it on this Wi-Fi. I got you.
Yep. Which is one of the things that people don't like about Bamboos. So for the most part, the default configuration is to connect over the internet to the cloud which likely resides in China basically all of the time.
It's literally like an IoT device.
It's totally an IoT device.
A cloud that,
So there was somebody recently who there were a bunch of other 3D printers that were open and exposed, and like the token you could just recreate and then log in, different company, but still there's a lot of like privacy concerns associated with that. You can print directly across the LAN. It's just not as fun. So like I can be out and about, walking around, pull out my mobile app, select something from the Maker World store, and then send it directly to my printer anywhere in the world. I'm willing to give up a little bit of privacy to do that conveniently.
Sure.
But there is a camera on the thing. Like it could, and also it gets really hot. Like there is some risk associated with that.
Well, it's similar to the Traeger grill.
Yes.
I can be anywhere and I can control my Traeger grill, right? Like again, it's fire. It gets hot.
Fire gets hot. You heard it here first, folks. Right? Sort of like Josh's glasses.
Yes, just like Josh.
Those are really hot.
I mean, Josh is hot. His glasses now are hot. It's just very fitting.
It's that Boston jersey that All
right, so rounding up this segment, where are you sending people first to get started in 3D printing?
Good question. So I would as much as it would be easy to just say that, I would say there's a few different companies out there that make fantastic 3D printers. Bamboo is one of them. Prusa is another. Ultimaker, Flashforge, Creality, maker of the Ender. Those are all some fantastic places to go and look for 3D printers that might fit your needs and budget. If you're looking, like personal recommendation, if you're looking to just pull something out of the box and start 3D printing with it, you can't go wrong with a Bamboo.
Yeah, that's what it's. That's
It's
what
just
people
going to
tell me.
work.
Right.
It self-calibrates. It's got everything you need built into it, and it just works.
And your slides, I believe, will be published with this segment.
Sure. Yeah, I can do that.
So you'll be able to see Dave's slides. You had recommendations for websites to get step files.
Yes.
We didn't talk a lot about the different filament types because there are so many. But filament's relatively inexpensive, and I feel like you're just gonna do a little research based on like what you want to print, what kind of printer you have is going to determine the filament type, and like your budget too.
To an extent,
in budget.
What's that, Josh?
Most printers can do most of the filaments these days, I think, right?
Yeah, there's you have to make some adjustments for speed and heat with certain things like flexible filaments. You want to do slower.
When I was looking at Bamboo printers, that's what it was. There was a big difference once you got into, I want to say, carbon fiber.
Yeah.
Which is expensive material, and the printers that do it are more expensive, but the stuff you print is going to be like super resilient, right? Because carbon fiber is like
I know I can do carbon fiber filament, and not like the real carbon fiber. It's not like it's not a continuous chain carbon fiber.
I got you. Yeah,
it's broken up.
Yeah. I got you.
It's basically crushed up carbon fiber particles thrown into.
Your printer probably has to, temperature wise, has to run at a higher temperature for carbon fiber. Is that true?
I don't remember what the temp is, but suffice it to say, it is abrasive, and your print nozzle will take a hit over a long period of time.
Okay.
I don't know if my A1 Mini can do carbon fiber, but I know that my other two can.
Right.
I have some. I haven't found a need to use it just yet.
Sure.
I think I got it free with like a subscription or something like that.
It's mostly for looks. I mean, as you said, it's not a continuous chain carbon fiber. It's mostly to get that carbon fiber look.
Yeah, it looks really nice. You might save a little bit of weight, but you can add some density. But if you're ever looking to do something that's really strong, even when it's lightweight, just use PETG. Like it's really strong. It's UV resistant, abrasion resistant, heat resistant for the most part, and water resistant. Like it's got all the things for the most part. It just takes a little bit longer than PLA, and it costs a little bit more. But
sure, okay.
I have, if you're looking to save some money on filament, which this is where the biggest expense is associated with 3D printing, because once you get one, you will start buying filament, and not just like one. You're not going to say, oh, I only need these. You will then start buying it and collecting it. Not pictured in the photo that I showed in my workshop is an entire wall of filament.
You should print yourself a rack of filament rack. You know, I mean,
you can, but it takes forever. I just literally just stack the boxes and call it a day.
Well, awesome.
Have you seen the guy that takes bottles and turns it back into filament?
Yeah, his project is open source, and you can make your own at home and just do it at home.
Wait, he takes what kind of bottles?
Plastic bottles,
soda bottles.
Yep, and melts them down and makes filament.
He uses a cutter, so it turns it, as you pull it, the bottle spins and it turns it into the basically the string, the plastic string. Then he's got a heater that curls the flat plastic string over on itself, so now it's round. And then he's got another heater that smooths it, and then a winder winds it on the spool, so it basically turns it into I guess polyethylene filament. It's PET, right?
Polyethylene terephthalate.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Dave, thank you so much. That was a fun segment, and I think a really good primer for folks, and probably gets people. It got me excited about 3D printing. So
we just 3D printed a Captain Crunch whistle. What's not to be excited about?
Cool? Awesome. Well, that'll round out this segment. Stay tuned. The security news is coming up next.